Greetings, viewers. This is CP666 bringing you once again to my server corner, where you can see this machine. This is the big one, the one that I have built. It's working just fine, and then behind it, if we can get in there, you can actually be able to see. Not very well, but in behind all this mess, there is a pair of small form factor machines down there, and they're also working just fine. And beside that, it's an HP D530, and the D530 has really been, really not been too good as of late. You know, I had to downgrade the RAM, and, well, it's still got a couple of problems. We'll go ahead and we'll bring it up here. Oh, look at that. It's obliged that it's actually crashed again. I was not expecting that, but yeah, this is the issue. It's still having problems, so I'd imagine the capacitors have finally just gone all the way wrong with that, so I'm going to end up replacing that. And I've been meaning to replace it for a while, but I guess now I need to replace it. Now, with what is the big question? I have any numgroup machines, you can see them here, that I could use to replace this, but I'm not going to use any of those. Nope, I'm going to use this. This is the former family computer. You can see it's definitely missing some pieces, and I almost drop it right there. There's nothing really overly special about it. It's actually kind of a piece of junk. This is one of these absolutely glorious tinfoil cases. You can see evidence of that there. It's got probably a junker power supply in it. I'll have to have a look at that. One of these dumb toolless brackets that doesn't work worth a crap. And an S-rank motherboard with an Athlon 1300 Thunderbird on it. I should just take this. You can see it's seen a little bit of action too. Probably more than a little bit of action, but I'm keeping this intact because it actually has a little bit of, you know, nostalgia value, being the family computer, the second ever family computer. After the Pentium 120 system was passed down to me, well, this was what replaced it, and it stuck around for actually quite a long time. It was only replaced, I think, in 2012 or 2013 with a Mac Mini that's still going strong. But we can go ahead and pop the case here. Take a look at what it's got inside. If I can pop the case. It doesn't like to come off. I tell you what, this thing really makes my life easy. Anyway, let's have a look at what's inside. It's got an SIS chipset. Don't really know how I feel about that. That could work real well, or it could, kind of, well, not. Some of them were good, some of them were just trash. Unfortunately, well, actually that's not really unfortunate there, but, this thing is set up a little bit differently than what I was expecting to find, and it looks like I'm going to have, if I want to put another hard drive in here, I'll have a little bit of fun trying to do that. Yeah, this thing has definitely seen a little bit of action. This was after the optical drive screwed up on me, so I'm probably going to end up having to replace that optical drive, because that's the one that was in here. And it caused a little bit of trouble when I took my, actually it might have even been this. You can see this has kind of seen a little bit of action. Whacked the crap out of that. Yeah. I have a temper. It takes a while to get there, but when I get there, look out. All hell will break loose. Motherboard looks like it's in pretty good shape. There's no bad capacitors or anything like that, and that's really what I was looking at. Front panel USB. Is that even hooked up? I thought this had front panel USB. I guess it doesn't. The battery on my camera is about to run down. Probably should have charged that before starting this. There's an odd slot. I never thought I'd see that. I don't know if that's PCI Express. I don't think so, because this looks like an AGP system. So I don't know what that is. Maybe some kind of debug slot or something. But yeah, it's an S-rank motherboard with an SIS chipset. Athlon 1300 Thunderbird. Probably, it looks like VData memory. I don't know how I feel about that. Can't really read much of it. Might be 1 gig. Probably upgrade that to 2. Could be 2 gigs. You never really know. But it's just got onboard video, serial port. It's got all of that. Well, it's set up fairly nicely. But I'm going to replace this power supply and I'll get out a couple other components to upgrade this thing. Okay, a couple of things. Got out my tripod, got out the power supply for the camera. I also put the macro lens on the camera so you can see a little bit more. This thing doesn't have a very wide field of view without the macro lens, which is probably why they purchased the macro lens in the first place. But, got a couple of things that I'm going to do here. I have some other RAM. I did check this RAM. These start 512 each, so it's only a gig. I can upgrade it, assuming these are actually 1 gig sticks. There's 2 of them, they're matched. They say 1 gig on them. They don't say kit either. Usually if it's a kit, 512 meg each for a 1 gig kit. They'll say kit of 2 or something similar. Other things I'm going to do to this, you can see I got a floppy cable here. I am going to install a floppy drive. Some people will probably question the necessity of doing that, but real computers have floppy drives, and like I said previously, there's a huge gaping hole here in the front of the machine, so I might as well fill it with something. I have floppy drives. Apparently my floppy drive collection's a little thin. Thought I had a few more 3.5-inch floppy drives than that. I have a fairly old one sitting here. But who cares? Floppy drive's a floppy drive. So I'll put that in there. I am going to replace that optical drive because as it turns out it's a CD burner. It's a DVD burner, and there's no real point for a DVD burner to be in a server. So I got a CD-ROM drive here. I don't know if it's any good. Actually, I think this one is good because I had 3 of these. One of them was no good, and well, it probably wouldn't be this one if I still have it up here. And haven't written on it that it's got a problem. So there's no screws in that, but it's not going to matter. There are screws in the floppy drive, so that's not going to matter either. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm replacing this power supply. This is a Coolmax power supply, which, you know, Coolmax is not necessarily a bad brand, but you can see there it says V500. It's rated for 500 watts. There is no way this thing is even going to put out remotely close to 500 watts. Actually, it doesn't even really say on it that it is 500 watts, but V500, come on, we can make a guess that it's probably, they're rating it for 500 watts. It's not 500 watts. Not a chance. So, I got what is this thing? HEC, High Quality Evolution Commitment. 350 watt. Probably also a piece of crap, but at least it's more honestly specified. And it's 80 plus. And even though I think that 80 plus is a crock of hooey, it does actually make sense for a server. It's going to be running for 24/7. I don't think it makes sense in desktops. You're not really running those very often. So the first thing I'm going to do, actually, is I'm going to pull out this power supply. So, we'll pull out, oh, yeah, that reminds me. I got a couple hard drives to try. These 2 drives are coming out of here because they may potentially still have data on them that I want to rescue. I'm just going to pull them off anyway. There's a Samsung 40 gig and a Western Digital 80 gig, one of those ubiquitous drives that everybody had 500 of. I'll pull those out, and I got a couple drives to try. I'm going to try a 20 gig first, but it's a Screamer. I don't know if I really feel comfortable putting a Screamer in this machine, so I will try it out, see what happens. If I don't like it, I got a 13.6 that I can also try. I think that's got ball bearings in it, but it's less of a Screamer. And then if that doesn't work, I got a 40. I don't really want to put a 40 in here because it's kind of a waste, but if I have to, I will. So, alright, let's pull all the rest of this. Did that just break? I don't know, that came out of there with a fairly solid thunk. It's got CD audio. I don't think that's really going to make much of a difference in here. I might pull that cable out and use that in something that can make better use of a CD audio cable. Yeah, I'll do that. Don't need a CD audio cable in a server. So, alright, let's see here. Pull that out. That'd be useful for something. Alright, is this power supply plugged into anything else other than the motherboard? This motherboard actually does not need a 4-pin power connector, which is kind of a surprise. But it's only an Athlon 1300 Thunderbird, so maybe it's more of a surprise to me than it really should be. Alright, let's flip this around. See if I can actually get the camera to show this. Take the screws out. Okay, and the screws are out of that, so I can just pull that out. So I'm just get that out of there. Yeah, that's junk. That's tinfoil. That's lighter than the 350 watt power supply is. You know, I'm going to test that theory, actually. I'm going to prove my point. Well, it took a bit, but I did find it. It even has a good battery. Wow. So let's see. Let's see if you can actually even see the printing on it. Let's take that HEC power supply. Let's see what it weighs. Probably a little bit more than this thing can handle. 1335. I'll say 1335 grams. It says 1334. It's flipping between the two. I'll say 1335 grams. How about this 500 watt stupid thing? It feels noticeably lighter. But I could be proven wrong very easily. 996. 997. Okay, 900 stabilized at 999. We'll say it's 1,000 grams, and that's it. So it's quite a fair bit lighter than the 350 watt. That is really sad. That's just really sad. Okay, let's go ahead and install the new power supply, making sure that it is the new one and not the old one. This motherboard, I don't know if I mentioned it. I think I probably did, but it does not require a P4 power connector. Which I thought was kind of strange, but then again, it's only an Athlon 1300 Thunderbird. Let's see if I can actually get this stupid power supply in place without too much delicate ballet. Probably not. I don't think the screw holes are quite lining up. I don't think the power supply is quite lining up. I'll see if I can get this screw in. Now you could get some evidence of this case's tinfoil nature. And there we go. Power supply is now in place. This is installed in the case. It's got a lot more wiring than the other one did. Flip this back around. I'll change the RAM next. Maybe for my next trick I'll install the floppy drive. I almost forgot. A lot of people love to get on my case in these videos when I'm working on a computer. They love to say, "Oh, where's your ESD wrist strap? Electrostatic discharge. You're not doing it properly." Look at this. Look at this, folks. I actually have one. I don't use it because I think that it's a crock-a-hooey, just like Energy Star. I'm probably not doing it. You're probably supposed to only handle it with the hand that has strap, but whatever. It's not even wintertime anyway, so there's not a whole lot of static electricity that can build up. But in the interest of doing things correctly, there you go. And before anybody asks, yes, it's hooked up to a ground, and it's hooked up to a good ground. Okay, let's get this RAM out of the way first, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to install the floppy drive. So I got to get the floppy drive over here. Got to find my screwdriver, which is right here. Actually, these screws might be loose enough that I could just pull them out by hand. I only need 2 of them. I'm not like most people. Although I'm kind of concerned now, I might have to pull the other side panel off to get the optical drive out and the 2 hard drives. Oh, it's possible that I've done things the right way and only put screws in on one side. I hate it when people put screws in on both sides. It just drives me nuts. It's like, come on, people. Do you ever expect to service your machine or what? It's ridiculous. Some of the things that these people do, I might put all 4 screws in. I usually don't. I guess I could probably make an exception for this tinfoil case, but I don't think it'll matter. Can this go in through the front? Yes. Now, can it be installed correctly? Not really. Well, yeah, it can. Barely. But it can. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll put it in, and I'll blithely assume it actually works. I think it does. That's why it's in that box and doesn't have any note on it. I think if I remember right, I actually used it to try and test that Zenith XT, and that didn't really work too well. Okay. Here we go. So then we'll put that in place. Still using my wrist strap, still hooked up. So now people cannot go and say, "You don't have your wrist strap on, you're supposed to have a wrist strap. And an ESD handling, surface." And no, you don't. Not for a hobbyist, not for an at-home thing. I mean, if you're doing it as a professional, if you're at work, yeah, probably you should have one, but I've always gotten away without them, so. Something just fell over on the other side of the room. I don't know what it was. Oh, this is backwards. What is this? That is backwards. Okay, do I have another one? Doesn't look like it. Now, this power supply is designed for serial ATA. I don't think it'll matter too much. I can always put that up to the... Well, maybe I can't, actually. I haven't thought about it. Let's see. Let me try. Did I get it plugged in? I can't tell. I probably did. And we'll take our floppy drive ribbon cable. We'll have to figure out which one's pin 1. Usually it's labeled. Actually, is this keyed? It's not keyed. Of course it's not friggin' keyed. Stupid. Non-keyed cables on modern computers is one of my pet peeves. Should have looked at the drive before I installed it, so now I'm going to have to assume which side is which. So, let's assume that it's the correct way. We'll put it in like this. And again, I'm going to have to probably use some profanity to get this cable in place. Oh, it is keyed. Can I use that floppy drive? I can't use that floppy drive. Not with this cable. Unless the other end isn't keyed. Nope, it's keyed. So, can't use that floppy drive. I gotta go get another floppy drive. Okay, so I've done a couple things. Let's see. I have a floppy drive installed right now. There's a floppy drive in there. Grabbed one that has keys. So, or it has a keyed connection because I need that for this. I could have just got another cable, but what's the point? Just grab a floppy drive. But I did notice that if we look over here at the optical drive, it's screwed in on the other side. So I'm going to have to pull this off anyway. I'll get this RAM out of the way. I have to flip the machine around. This is going to be fun. Lots of fun. Trying to get this side panel off. Something will probably follow the machine. I'll get the side panel off and I'll come back. Yep. You can see them all now. All these damn screws. So I'm just going to pull them out. I'm going to just not put them back in. Who cares? I don't need these anyway. And we won't put them back in because it does not need screws on both sides. That's dumb. Only time you should ever have to remove this side panel is to install a motherboard. Okay, that's done. Should never have had to remove all those screws from that, but apparently somebody felt the need to make my life difficult. So I'll pull out this hard drive first. This is the 80. You can see it there. Assuming you can read it. If video compression gets done with it, you probably will not be able to. Put that somewhere out of the way. Right there sounds as good as any place. Here's the other one. This is a slimline drive. You'd think it was newer, but this is the older drive of the two. It's a little Samsung thing. I think I have two of these. I don't know where the other one is, but I think I had two of them. So we'll get that out of the way. And then we'll make our choice of drive here. That's going to be a little interesting to get that plugged in. That might not even work. That isn't going to work. I'm going to have to put it down one. Oh, that's irritating. I hate it when I have to do that, but it looks like I don't really have much of a choice. Because I need the two other power connectors. Figure out where they are. Yeah, I need these for the hard drives. Because these aren't going to reach both. It's not going to be possible. With the way that this is set up. Actually, I take that back. Well, that might work fine, actually. No, that's going to work fine. Okay, well, I stand corrected. I thought it wasn't going to work, but it looks like it is. So that's good. Saves me a little bit of time. And swearing. Alright, let's get this thing in place. What's this jumpered for? Does it actually tell me? Cable select. I usually jumper them. It'll be the only thing on its channel, so we'll just jumper it as a master. That way it doesn't matter where on the cable it is. And we'll install it. And just slide through the front. No big deal. Flush, get it to go flush, just like that. And it's going to pop out. Fun times. This LCD on this camera is getting in my way, so I'm going to just close it. Have the viewfinder, that should be good. And I don't remember which screws are which anymore. I think these are the... Yeah, these are the CD-ROM screws. The other two, the two that I was going to grab, are floppy screws. Again, I'll try and get this to be flush with the case. This is the hole that it was installed in previously, so... Tighten it down. It's probably going to wiggle a little bit because there's no screws on the other side, and like I said, this is a tinfoil case, but I'm not going to be using the optical drive very often, so I really don't care. Okay, so that's now plugged in, at least in the computer. Be interesting to see how plugging the drive in with power is going to work. Those go here. So, don't worry about those too much. Oh, I forgot to plug in a floppy drive. Whoops. So there's a ribbon cable. Which one is the primary IDE channel? That one. This is the secondary channel. So go ahead and we'll hook up a ribbon cable. Now you can see tinfoil. Yeah. Power. Hook up our power. Now what? What needs to be hooked up next? Hard drive. It should be the last thing that I hook up before I hook up anything else. Which drive was I going to use? I don't remember. I think it was going to be the 20 gig drive. I was going to see what it sounded like. Then from there decide if I wanted to use it. What's it jumpered for? Does it actually tell me what the jumpers are? J48, cable select on. Doesn't tell me master or slave though. That's kind of ridiculous. Okay, that's kind of stupid. Leave it to Maxter to do something stupid like that. It should tell me master, not just cable select. That's useless. Some of them do. I guess this one doesn't. Oh, it's a compact drive. Yeah, why am I not surprised they don't tell you anything about it? Now, which drive bays am I going to be forced to use here? The top one? Yeah, I'll use the top one. Looks like I'm going to be forced to use the top two, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal. I suppose if I wanted to put more drives in, they'd have to be serial ATA. Why is this not fitting? Really, they were very stingy with this power supply. Wow. I might be able to get away with putting it one down, which I like to do. I like to space out the hard drives so they get some airflow. Not that there is much airflow to go around anyway. But, you know, whatever airflow you can get is better. Let's see if I could plug this floppy drive in. That'd be my next trick. Of course, it should go in place. I don't know why it wouldn't. Other than by virtue of the fact that it's going to be an idiot. There we go. In place. Everything there is plugged in. Last thing I need to do is figure out where my... Get that out of the way. Figure out where my 20 pin is. And install the 20 pin. Done. Problem solved. Bob's your uncle. And in this case, that actually is true. Now you're going to hook this thing up. How much do you want to bet that I forgot something fairly important? Okay, I actually just made the realization that in order to install the operating system, I need a DVD drive. So can't use that CD-ROM. Whoops. So I went ahead and I put a DVD drive in there. Doesn't really work too well. Supposedly, if the writing on it is to be believed, it needs the press and bang tactic in order to work, but who cares? I'm not going to be using it very often anyway, so it should be more than good enough for this. I did jumper it up. At least I think I jumpered it up. Oh, I guess we'll find out. Alright. Focus on the machine, not the dust on the lens. Stupid camera. Wow. What on earth? Anyway, so I've got everything hooked up. At least, should be all hooked up. Let's push power and see what happens. We'll flip the power onto the machine. Got a keyboard initialization. The machine did not power on. Listen to that screamer. Ugh. Do get monitor. F2. CMOS battery should not be bad on that. So why is it? Yeah, I think I'm not going to keep that drive. F2 to run setup. I'm going to check some values in here. It's possible that it's because I haven't set this up since putting this motherboard back into this case, which could be the case. It's 11:23 right now on October 13th. What? Oh, right, it's one of these stupid ones. Enter 2018. And it is 11:23. Wow, it's already 11:23. What? Freaking piece of garbage. Floppy drives. 1.44 installed. Floppy drive swap is disabled because I don't really think I need it. Seek is enabled. IDE devices. Now that's hooked up correctly. Why is the bus master disabled? Smart enabled. Well, some people say it's not really useful. I think that it's just fine. Total memory. 1040 megabytes with 64 megs of shared memory. Apparently this thing has a 1 gigabyte limit on the memory. Interesting. Well, that changes my plan a little bit, I think. Means I'm not going to waste these two 1 gigabyte memory modules in this. I'm going to go grab some of the 512s, and I'll put the 512s in here. So it should be all fine. Spread spectrum, I don't think it matters. Chipset config, well, I'm not going to change that. Resource, not going to change that. Peripheral, onboard floppy, auto, doesn't have an onboard infrared. Onboard MIDI, well, it does have one of those. Maybe I'll enable that. Maybe I'll just leave it disabled because I'm not going to use it. Oh, game port. Yeah, it's got the game port. IDE, LAN, audio, don't really need it. I'll just save it in auto. Just leave it alone. System hardware monitor. The temperatures look pretty good. Power supply voltages look good. A little bit low on the 5 volt, but it is what it is. Security, ignore it. Suspend the RAM. AC power loss should be power on. Apparently you can't set it to last state. That's interesting. Boot, quick boot, numlock, boot to OS2, apparently that's a separate setting, that's interesting. Boot to network, maybe I'll enable it. Yeah, I'll enable that. If at some point later on. CD-ROM, IDE, interesting. Exit, saving changes, good. And we'll see what this system does. I wonder what's on that hard drive. I think that was in a Macintosh. This thing might have no idea what it is. Copy seek worked. Looks like it's going to boot to the IDE 0 not found. Actually, that's probably because it has no idea what's on it. So, alright, let me change this RAM again, and what am I going to do next after that? Probably going to install... That's a nice GUID. Wow. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to begin installing the operating system. Okay, take two. Different hard drive. Gonna install media. Power it up. Turn on. Give me my optical drive, you piece of junk. There we go. Hey! Searching for boot record on IDE hard drive. Well, apparently it's going to try and boot something. There. I got my optical drive. I think it locked up. Control delete. Don't know what's on that hard drive. So I'm assuming this optical drive is any good. It's reading the CD-ROM. Reading the DVD. See what it does. Alright, we have a different computer here. Why do we have a different computer here? Well, I don't know why. Really don't know why at all. It's completely inexcusable, in fact. But the other machine refused to boot to a DVD. Didn't matter what DVD it was. Didn't matter what the media type was. I tried several good DVDs and it didn't boot any of them. So, you know what? I got a lot of patience for older computers, but these newer ones that should be completely automatic and they don't work, that's it. Don't have time, don't have patience. And I came close to tossing it across the room, and I know that when I get to that point, it's time to move on. So I just grabbed another machine in the closet. This is that Northern Micro Spirit thing. This thing has been tossed across the room, so this could go about as well as I'm expecting it to. However, I do have a little bit of faith, at least. You know, just a little bit. I've installed a serial ATA optical drive. You can see that here. This thing only has one onboard IDE controller. The second one that it's got is actually part of a RAID controller, and it doesn't work worth a crap. So I really wanted to avoid using it if I could, and I'll do so. I have tested this drive. This drive boots, which is inexplicable considering it came out of a scrap pile. But it works. Everything's installed. I have everything hooked up. I don't know how much RAM it's got in it. I think it's a Pentium 4 300. Pentium 4 3 gigahertz, I should say. I don't know. Let's figure out what's going on here. So, turn the power on. Spam the delete key so I can get the setup. It's got 2 gigs of RAM. Cool. Alright, so what's it doing? Told it to go into the BIOS. Did it ignore me? No, it didn't. The date and time is wrong, but I think that's because it's GMT. So I'm going to change that back to 13. That's correct. That is correct. It's fine to me so far. So you can see we get primary IDE, third IDE, and fourth IDE. There's no secondary. The secondary is the RAID controller. So let's see. I'm going to leave that alone. System information. Yep, Pentium 4 3 gigahertz, 2 gigs RAM. Should be good enough. USB should be fine. CPU, not even going to touch that. Chipset, not going to touch that. Onboard devices, onboard LAN is on. All of that is good. The ITE controller, I could go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and turn it off because I'm not going to use it. Everything else there is fine. PCI plug and play. Why is the Busmaster off? Alright. Let's see. Boot device priority set up correctly. Boot settings. Not going to touch that. everything should be good to go, so eject the optical drive, put the DVD in place for Windows Server 2008. And hopefully that'll actually be enough space for Server 2008. It's Vista based, and if I remember right, Vista should fit on a 20 gigabyte drive. It might even fit on something smaller, but no sense in trying our luck. Probably should have hooked up a mouse. Maybe I'll do that. I'll save our configuration and I'll hook up a mouse. Okay. So just press any key for the DVD, probably because there's something already on the optical drive, or the hard drive. So, boot to the DVD. You can see there's nothing wrong with it. Wouldn't boot to this DVD before, but there's nothing wrong with it. So, I don't know. That's just weird, man. That's another burner. I don't know if I want to keep the burner in there. I don't actually have any non-burners, do I? No, that's a burner too. I'm pretty sure the other one's an LG, which is also a burner. So I don't have any SATA burners, or sorry, SATA non-burners. All of them are IDE, and I'm not using multiple IDE things on this machine. I've got 2 IDE controller, 2 IDE slots, and that's it. So now we're booting into what looks like Windows Vista, but it's actually Windows Server 2008, theoretically. And I need to find my product key. That could be fun. Good thing it didn't crash. That'd be about my luck. This mouse is not really liking that surface. So what do I do about that? I'll use my leg as a mouse pad. Okay, that's all good. Install now. There's only one drive for it to install to. Keeps reading that floppy for some reason, making a lot of noise with the optical drive. That's all coming out of the optical drive. All that squeaky noises. At least I think that's all coming out of the optical drive, unless that's coming out of the speaker. Which it's not. So let's see if this is going to work or not. Okay, so I know that my license is for Server 2008 Standard. I'm going to see if I can actually find my license key and just make sure that it's Server 2008 Standard. That's standard. I'm going to do the full installation even though I don't really need it. But I'm going to do it anyway. Accept license agreement. Custom. There's one drive for it to install to. So I'm going to delete and install to the unallocated space. And there we go. So now it's just time to play the waiting game. Okay, I took off the macro lens on this camera because I noticed that it seemed to have been making stuff out of focus. So if there was anything in the video that was out of focus, I do apologize. It's because of that macro lens. I thought it'd be a good idea to increase the field of view of this camera, but if it's going to make things out of focus, what's the point? Missed the reboot. I shouldn't have to boot to the CD or DVD. It should be able to figure that out automatically. That hard drive might be a little annoying. Suppose I can get used to it. Besides, I don't sleep very well when things are quiet anyway, so a little bit of extra noise probably isn't going to hurt. But I'm trying to reconfigure the existing server 2008 NAS so it's not, there's no network conflicts, because that would suck. Don't really need any of those. Things like the IP address and NetBIOS name, things like that. I'm also trying to check and see what the configuration is with regards to server roles and server features and all those kinds of things, because I'm going to have to do this identically There's only one specific thing that this needs to do, and this is the only reason why I'm running Server 2008 in the first place. It needs to talk to my NT4 soundboard computer. None of my Linux servers will do it. It doesn't matter if it's running NAS for free. Oh, I'm sorry, they call it Sigma NAS now, I guess. Sigma NAS or Open Media Vault will not talk to. Samba will not talk to it. So, that or it will not talk to Samba. There's a disconnect one way or both ways, and nothing gets done. So I'm doing it the Windows way. So eventually, when Server 2008 goes into support, I may not even care, but eventually, what's probably going to end up happening is I'm going to have to figure out some alternative means for storage for those soundboards, because I want to be able to access them over the network, and it doesn't seem like connecting network shares off of that machine is working either. So it's possible that something with the network stack on that Advantech computer is screwed up, but eventually my goal is to migrate this over to Linux and do it that way, because there's nothing else that really I need Windows Server for. It's not like I'm using IIS for anything, and frankly, if you're using IIS for anything, you need to get into the this millennia. This millennium. Stop being stuck in the 90s. Nobody uses IIS anymore. But if you happen to be, if I'm not using IIS, I'm not using SQL Server, I'm not using any of the special Microsoft anything. It's just the network share needs to be able to talk to that one computer, and Linux won't do it. So, gotta go with what I got. I'm thinking that hard drive is probably going to end up getting replaced later on, though, because that's irritating. I don't like that. So, okay, well, it appears to have moved on. And it rebooted itself. Pentium 4. Still trying to figure out all the other service stuff. Obviously, a gig of RAM is not enough for Windows Server 2008. I thought it was. I guess not, because it's not really working too well on that other one. Yeah, my NAS over there has crashed again, so... Page file number was corrupt. What a surprise. Well, I'll figure out what's going on with it. Well, you know what? Forget it. I'm probably just going to end up doing it manually anyway, so... I gotta get it out of there. That's going to be fun. For my next trick. Apparently I now only have 2 minutes left on this tape. Just like Windows Vista, thrashes the hard drive like crazy for no reason. You don't ever really notice it until you have a drive in there that has a noisy head stack like this one does. The user's password must be changed before logging on the first time. Okay, let's change the password. Your password has been changed. So it's now going to log me on. I'm going to immediately shut it down so I can do some reorganization on this bed. Probably take the server off, get the other one out, and take out the stuff that I need to take out. Oh, the speakers even work. Maybe I'll pull that speaker out of there too. I don't really need it. But yeah, no, I'm going to just immediately shut it back down. We'll call it operating system reconfiguration. Well, looks like I ran out of videotape. No matter, I got other cameras. So I'll have to switch cameras. I mean, I do have other mini DV tapes, but I'd rather not use them until I'm sure that the footage off of them is actually in good shape. But anyway, I've created an epic log jam, traffic jam, I guess is the better word, of stuff here in an attempt to get that NAS out of there. You know, I had this all nice and clean. I guess that didn't last too long now, did it? But here it is. The HP D530 compact mini tower in all of its glory, in all of its filthy capacitors. Wow. We have to wonder which capacitor it is that's causing the trouble. Suspect it's probably this one, if it's any of them. Or maybe some of the ones that are in the voltage regulator that are also spewing junk all over the place. But I don't think there's a single good capacitor on this board, but I actually don't know what drive it is that I want, to be honest with you. It's the larger of the two. Pretty positive that it was the 200 gig drive, so it's probably not the Seagate on the top here. But I am going to pull them both anyway, and I'm going to put some other drive in this and take the RAM out and put some other junk RAM in it, and I'm probably just going to get rid of this machine because, I mean, what did I pay for it? I don't have still have the sticker on it, but I'm pretty sure I gave like 15 bucks, if even that, for this machine. I got more than my $15 worth out of it anyway, so just put some crap. It needs a CPU fan. That's one thing it needs. Obviously it needs capacitors, probably a whole new motherboard. Interestingly, they didn't actually put this little thing down here so they could use all these slots. Could probably use all these slot covers too. Maybe I'll take all the slot covers out before I get rid of it. Don't know yet, but I know I am going to put other RAM in this because I'm not going to let a gigabyte of DDR slip through my hands. Anyway, I got to get this drive out and all this other junk, so I will be back in a moment, thanks to the magic, well, probably not so much of video editing, but a videotape. Okay, gonna pause for a brief little excursion into some potentially non-politically correct verbiage. Actually, it's more than not potential, it is not politically correct. Whoever designed this motherboard was riding a retard rocket, because this thing is the stupidest design I think I have ever seen. Not only is there one IDE channel right here, this one does not count, it's hooked up to a RAID controller, so it is less than useless. You want our serial ports, serial ATA ports, who cares about those? In a system like this, they're only IDE anyways. But this, right here, this is the stupidest thing, this is the stupidest place for a power supply connector on the planet. Why is this here? This is dumb. This was like, how not to design a motherboard 101. You know? Put the floppy connector right there. There is nothing wrong with designing it that way. This is incorrect. Should have just replaced this with the P5PE VM out of the other machine, because at least that is designed correctly. This isn't. Anyway, I gotta figure out how to get this all set up, so, oh yeah, and when you have this installed, this other drive, you can't put the power supply connection back in place, so I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna get around that, because I'm going to have to get around that. Completely stupid. Wow. In the 18 years, yes, really, I've been at it for this long. You might not believe that, but that's your own prerogative. I've never, not once, ever, had that much difficulty installing an IDE hard drive in a computer system. Not once. Ever. Before now. That process took probably about an hour. Between jumper issues and cable issues and issues that shouldn't exist in the first place, because if the designers of this system actually did their job, they wouldn't exist. The motherboard and the case both. I found flaws with both while doing this. First of all, there's not nearly enough play in this little mechanism, the little tray here, in order for it to fit properly. Doesn't work. And the motherboard, of course, I've already pointed out what I think about that, and all the problems it has. It's in place. It worked the last time I powered it on. Now that I have all the screws in, is it still going to work? Well, let's find out. I doubt it. I did have a solid light before. I don't usually like to see that, but we're gonna look here. We have two IDE disks. The original drive, 13 gig drive, and our 200 gig drive. They are there. Yes, I know it's crooked. The monitor is crooked. I don't know why. It doesn't sit straight on the bed, but it doesn't. Well, it's sitting straighter now. It'll fall over in short time, though. So it's all there. Everything is there. Everything's working. I can now boot into the operating system. It's probably going to reboot. Well, it's going to try and boot from the CD. We don't really need that in the drive anymore, I don't think. My God, I've never, ever seen a system so reluctant to accept an IDE hard drive in my life. That wasn't broken. Maybe this is broken. I wouldn't be surprised. It's an Asus motherboard. Oh! Oh yeah! Oh, and in the process, the best part of it all, I broke another one of these ribbon cables. Because I hammered it into the drive. Probably wasn't a smart idea to do that, but whatever. Hammered it into the drive, and that still didn't work. So that cable got broken. Single device cable now. If I don't toss it out right. This thing's running well. At least we've managed to get somewhere. So now I gotta configure it. Okay, like I said, really don't know how I feel about that noisy hard drive in there. I don't have a lot of ball bearing drives. Installing device driver software. Yeah, that would be for the second IDE drive that I just installed. What's the, this is the initial configuration tasks. No network adapters detected. Oh, that's not good. I'm gonna have to figure that one out. I don't even know what network card this would have in it. Okay, what drivers are missing? I'll have to figure that one out. Okay, device manager, Ethernet controller is probably not known. Yep. So I'm gonna have to figure those out. Okay, my monitor's crooked again, but I did get the network working. It's using the Windows Vista driver, because apparently Asus has a driver for Windows Server 2003, but not for Windows Server 2008. They have a Vista driver, but not a driver for Server 2008. I don't get it either. But that's the way it was, so that's how I did it. I suppose it's all pretty much the same thing anyway. I guess they figure that it's the same thing anyway. I don't know if there's a difference. I guess Server 2003 is a different kernel version than Windows XP, but I guess that Server 2008 is not a different kernel version from Windows Vista. Now, how do I plug in this cable? Is it this way? It's this way. Alright, so local only. It's probably not going to work. Let's see. I'm going to have to give it a static address. Microsoft iSetTap adapter. I don't even know what that is. But I do. It does say local and internet. But, oh, this is not working too well as a mouse pad, I'll tell you what. Now I gotta set this thing up with a static address because it is getting a dynamic address. Apparently it's got address 69. I want static, which means I need to go into here and let's figure this out. Okay, so we now have our static address set. And all of that should be good to go. Just had to double check, make sure my camcorder was recording in 16:9 mode. Probably would have been a good thing to check before doing all this. Unfortunately, it's only a 100 megabit adapter, but I don't care. I don't think it's going to matter. Okay, so we can get rid of... Still don't have the video. I wonder if I could actually browse that and see if it'll find it. No. So if I want to get the video working, I'll have to find the driver. Maybe I'll just dump... Is there actually a Vista driver for the video? I didn't see one. I only saw one for the LAN and some other things, the BIOS, and a couple of other little utilities. Let's see. Utilities, qualified vendor list. No, I do not see video driver. I don't really care anyway. It doesn't really matter for the server. Shouldn't really be anything else in there I need to touch then. If that's the case. Network, this is a home network. I could activate it. Maybe I will activate it. I'll give it a second though. Provide computer name and domain. I'm going to set that up. This is NAS 2. The new NAS 2. It's on the work group. Again, I'll set up all of the... I'll reboot it after I'm done setting it up. Beep. Restart later. Okay. Enable automatic updating and feedback. Manually configure. Let's see. This should be install updates automatically. Yes, that's good. Error reporting. Let's send summary reports. I don't really care about the customer experience improvement program. Download, install updates. I'll ignore that here for a minute. Remote desktop, I'm going to turn that on. I wondered. I'm only really going to be connecting to it from my machine, so it doesn't really, I don't suppose it really matters. My machine is Windows 7, so it should work, theoretically. I wonder if I'm going to actually see it on my network. Nope, it can't find the computer, so I'm going to have to manually find it, I guess. Well, it found it. Do a quick test. Don't really care, just run. Oh, it's because I didn't reboot it. Alright. So yeah, you can see there now it logged me out over there. But, so I gotta log back in again. Okay, so that's good to go. No desktops enabled, firewalls on. Add roles. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll reboot it then. We'll probably try and boot from that USB stick. Okay, rebooted it. I don't really think I need that USB stick anymore. So, with any luck, the initial configurations thing will come back up again. At least that would be ideal. It would also be very ideal if it didn't, if it would actually connect to my network. And here it comes. Okay, add roles. I'm gonna have to activate it and do all that mess too. Yeah. Waiting for refresh. Well then. How long do you suppose it's gonna take to do this? What a mess. My computer name is set correctly though. Okay, server roles. We just need file services. That's the only thing that it really needs to do. It's not DHCP, it's not DNS, it's not web, it's not Windows deployment, or WSUS. I could probably use it for WSUS, but I'm not going to. That'd be a nice thing to do. The Windows search service and indexing service cannot be installed on the same computer. Okay. Let's see. How was the other one configured? I don't even remember. Distributed file system, probably don't need that. I'm going to install that. Services for NFS, sure. I don't really need that, really. But, Windows search service, blah, 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 blah. Let's install all of that, sure. Storage monitoring. That one. Sure, put them there. Confirmation. All that should be good. Now, does it want my install CD? That is the big question. Look at this animated hourglass down here. Makes you wonder why they didn't put that anywhere else in Windows. Let's get that mouse out of the way. This is going to be a long video. It was supposed to be a quick server swap, but so much for that. Okay, you know what I find very interesting? It's got this little window that tells you the installation details, but it only shows all this information after the whole thing is concluded. Kind of strange. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to bother. Let's see, what other features could we add to this? I mean, I could add Telnet. I'm not going to bother. The other one was configured for Telnet, but I don't care. Storage manager for SANs. Removable storage manager. Remote differential compression. There are a few interesting things in here, but I am going to ignore all of it. Yes, I want to cancel. I could close that. It's probably going to open up the actual server manager. But the most important thing. Hold on a second. Alright, minimize that. I'm going to make sure that this is shared correctly. So, share, advanced sharing, share this folder. Limit number of simultaneous users. It's got a very huge value on it. What did I call the share originally? Just so I can try and call it the same thing when I don't have too many conflicts. Server to storage. Okay. So, server to storage. Is that correct? Yes. Permissions. Everyone has read permissions, but I'm going to say specifically the administrator. If you log in. So, come on, you stupid mouse. NAS2 administrator has full control. Alright. Everyone just has read permissions. Cool. Okay. Loads. Now, is it actually shared? Let's find out. So, if this worked correctly, I should be able to just come over to this machine. It looks like it is actually going to work because I have up-to-date data. I should be able to just click on it. And there we go. Can I actually create stuff? Yes. Works just fine. But, big test. Let's see if it'll work with this. And it's ancient Windows installation, as I'm busily breaking everything. Skip memory test. Figure I'll let this thing start up for all of you who probably have not seen it. Some of you maybe even ever. I know I have a lot of new subscribers recently. So we'll just let it start up. Get that out of the way. I'll probably have to pick up the mouse again. Wherever it seems to have gone, I seem to have lost it. I found it. It's underneath my chair. This is not fast to boot. Will not win any speed records. Hardware profile configuration. Original configuration. I must have hit a button. So I wonder what that was all about. It's never done that before. Hope it still works. I'll let it start up and we'll come back here. It's running Service Pack 6 if you're wondering. I thought there was always a Service Pack 7, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, well, apparently it was kind of pointless to stop that, now wasn't it? It should auto-connect, because it knows the username and password. It does take a while. It's not instant. Does it work? I think it does. Yes, it does. Look at that. They're all there. Everything is working. Awesome! That was painless, once I got the Ethernet driver installed. And all those stupid hard drives, I think that was probably the biggest pain of the whole thing. If you ignore the fact that the first machine didn't work at all, getting those drives in there was... Can't believe that. And there's the last step. Activation successful. So I'm amazed. Apparently that actually is a volume license key then, because this is not the second time I've done this either. I think this is like the third or fourth time I've installed this copy of Server 2008, so that's not bad. Don't really want to use it many more times though. Hopefully I don't have to. Okay, got it all hooked up in its permanent home. Turn on the video light here so you can actually see. I've got monitor and keyboard. I probably don't really need them, but the network's hooked up, and so is the power, and the machine will turn on instantly as soon as I hit this button. Turn off the light. You get a beep. That's good. So that's coming on. Is my network... Oh, I am missing a device on my network, so that's fine. Almost forgot about that. It's not quiet, but that's alright. That's just fine. It's not like all the other NASs are silent, and this one is loud. The primary NAS, the big one, is louder than this is, so... As long as it comes up, hopefully it will be a lot more stable. Doesn't have the bad capacitor problem to contend with. That alone is a significant improvement. So, I think I'm probably going to conclude the video with that. There's not much else I can think of to show you or to demonstrate. I thought I turned the video light off. I guess I didn't. But, yeah, that's not fast, is it? But it looks like it's coming up just fine, so... yeah. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, certainly do feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time. Till then. But wait, as the old saying goes, there's more. So it all worked out, right? Well, it did until I went to bed and got up the next day, and noticed that this thing was in a reboot loop. Now, why was it in a reboot loop? Well, it was actually very simple. You see, I was always under the impression that Windows Server 2008 would be able to run comfortably in 13.6 gigabytes. And really, when you consider it, Windows Vista runs in 13.6 gigabytes. There is no excuse for Windows Server 2008 not to run in 13.6 gigabytes. But it doesn't. It was in a reboot loop because it went to install Windows updates and ran into space. So, solution. Here's another hard drive. This is a 40 gigabyte drive, and funny enough, it is the drive that came out of the other system in the first place. Now, because I'm curious, and I feel like trying this, I want to see if this system will actually boot that drive without any modifications, because it also means that I won't have to install all those updates, and because in order to get the system running I had to delete the pending.xml file for the updates in the first place, we don't potentially have any system-breaking bugs later on down the line, if it can boot that. I don't know for sure whether or not that will work. The hardware might be different enough that it will not. The only thing I can really think of that might be a big issue would be the Ethernet, but I have a driver for that, so it's not that big of a deal. Alright, so let's go ahead. I'm going to pull the back cover off. I don't know what you can and can't see. Maybe I should actually show this, right? Probably a good idea. Pull the screw out of the back cover. So I did actually put the screw back in. Because it's a server, I want it to be secure. do it right. Do it right the first time, I guess is the right way to put it. So now we'll pull this out. I knew I should have put a 40 gig drive in here to start with. Didn't really think that it would need it. So I thought, well, what's the point of wasting a 40 gig drive on this if it's not actually going to need it? But as it turns out, it does need it. So, good to know. Alright. So now what I need to do is I need to unplug all of that cabling. I do need to keep the drive out. Okay, that could be a possible problem. Well, it won't be. No, I'll be fine. It'll be okay. Because I'm taking the drive out anyway. It shouldn't be a problem. I can just not hook up the data drive when I'm doing this. So we'll unplug that. Unplug both drives. Or I'll unplug it and you'll watch if I'm not covering it with my big rear end. Hope I didn't just break it. Okay, so now screws need to come out of the front panel because it's got screws in the front panel. For the drive cage, pull that screw off. Being careful to note where each screw goes. Now the big question is, can I get this out of here without breaking something? The answer is yes. Alright. That's installed in there crooked, isn't it? Oh, it isn't. That's amazing. Okay, so that screw is in there crooked. Not sure if you can see that. Is the top drive the one that I want to pull? Yes. Okay, the screws are all out of the drive. Can it come out? Did I actually pull the screws out of the right drive? I just saw some dust fall out. Okay, I don't know why this drive is not coming out of here. Perhaps it's because it didn't fit right in there in the first place. Check the jumper ring, make sure I jumper the next one correctly. It's jumpered for device 0. I'm going to jump it for slave. So you can see that their slave jumpering is as follows. Both jumpers go beside each other, closest to the... This jumper's going to fly across the room, just watch. There we go. There's the correct slave jumpering. I'll change it back when I go to finish off with the drive. Okay, so I need this one. The new one. He's new to this server. What's it jumpered for? Looks like it's jumpered for master OneDrive. Although I guess this is one of those drives that does it for both. Either single or master. Alright. Single drive or master if a slave is present. So now we'll try and insert this correctly. Put it in the right way. Which I am doing. Being diligent to do it correctly. Now let's see if I can actually get this to go in place properly. It's going to have to go in like that. So that should be good to go. Alright. Now I just got to screw it into place. This could be interesting. One thing to note before doing this, very important, do not screw all the screws in all the way. That way, if your alignment is a little bit off, you can actually move it. Otherwise, you'll set yourself up for a lot of pain and suffering. Been there, done that, multiple times. Never again. Okay, screws are in place. Now, the prudent thing to do would be to not put this back in place before you know that everything's going to work. But do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it back in place before I know that everything's going to work. Why? Because you only live once. I like to live dangerously, but not only that, but I think that it's going to work just fine. Of course, that's assuming that this thing isn't going to be stupid, and it's going to actually let me put it in. Just like that. There we go. Okay. So, like I said, the first thing that I'm going to do is not put in the data drive. I'm going to put in the new drive that I want. And I'm also not going to plug in the other drive, because I want to see if this thing is going to boot off of the existing drive, the existing Server 2008 installation. Now, I'm also assuming that that's the original Server 2008 installation, that wasn't some other drive. Probably should plug in the floppy drive while I'm at it, so that way it doesn't complain about that. Although, I suspect it wouldn't anyway. So, there we go. There's all that. And let me get my hookup cable. Okay, got the display hooked up and all of that. Better be actually hooked up. There's not enough light in here to work. Welcome to fall. It's 5:30 and the sun's down. People wonder why depression exists. That's exactly why. Turn it on and see if the CPU fan actually works. Beep. Finally, the useless display decides it's going to work. I don't know what it is about these Samsung things, but they're absolutely terrible when it comes down to figuring out what is hooked up to what input. Now, the reason why I complained about starting Windows normally in that case was actually because it was running on the older hardware, and the older hardware was causing crashes. So, well, the other hardware. Because of, well, you know why. All the bad capacitors on the motherboard. Is it going to boot? I actually don't know. I'd love it if it did. That would be very nice. And if it actually worked, everything worked out the way it was supposed to, probably should have hooked up a network cable, having thought about it. Let me go hook up a network cable. Wow, that's out of focus. Okay, it's plugged in, put in the password. It did actually boot, so that's a good sign. It's a very good sign. Now I gotta find that USB stick that I put the Ethernet driver on, and I gotta run that. Probably should have plugged in a mouse. Oh well. Unplanned. System failure, stop error. We'll put it in that way. Installing device driver software. Click here for status. I can't actually click there. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I can. Now it's installing everything. It wants me to change my password, but you don't have to do that. That's a waste of time. Fortunately, it looks like all of this is pretty well standard hardware. The only things it probably won't find, I've disabled the ITE controller once for the video board. Windows needs to install driver software for your video card. Who cares? It's still going. It did ask me about the Ethernet. I told it to ask me later, because I know that I'm going to have to run other software in order for it to figure that out. Especially since it brought up the wizard and didn't just look automatically anyway. High definition audio devices ready to use. What is it talking about? I'll be very surprised if it actually managed to get that right. But it's basically having to install everything. Oh my god, it actually worked. Look at that. I have sound. I guess the hardware was close enough that the sound worked otherwise. I don't know what happened there. Please consult with your device. Whatever. Close. It's probably going to ask me to reboot. Hey. Reboot later. What I'm going to do now is Assuming that it's, I'm going to just blithely assume that the USB works. And in the front panel, I'm going to plug in the USB drive, USB thumb drive. Alright, autoplay. Now, an unknown error occurred. Setup will exit. So why did it work the first time then, huh? Oh, but look, my network is connected down there. Gotta love Windows sometimes. I'm assuming it's actually going to work. Okay, let's go into network. Ooh, that wasn't what I wanted. That's actually something else. Network and sharing center. See if my IP address is configured properly. I thought my camera stopped there for a second. It says dead NAS. I better change that. View status, details, IP address is wrong. Gonna have to reconfigure that. Okay, well, for some reason we're stuck local only now. I don't know what happened. And it looks like my audio has now messed up again, which is fine. That's okay. I don't mind that. I don't really need audio. Not in a server. Okay, that's an interesting bug. I had to ping something over the network, over the internet, in order to figure out, or to get this thing to figure out that it was connected to the network. But it's connected to the network. Alt F4, fine. Don't Alt F4. One other thing I need to do is I need to change the network name back from dead NAS to NAS 2 because it's not dead anymore, it's running. Oh, I need to put my other drive back in, but you don't really need to see any of that since it's pretty standard stuff. So, thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. This video is finally done. This is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time. Till then.